So we're starting our February 2025 EDI Scholars Talk with the inimitable Steve Walk, engineer and complex systems scholar, longtime EDI listserv member. And Steve is going to talk to us about heuristics and intelligence.
All right. With that introduction, we'll get started. Let's go to our first slide here. Here's what we're going to be looking at today. I'll give you a little scaffold to looking ahead. We're going to talk about engineering. It's very important that we know what engineering is. A lot of people don't know just what engineering is or what engineers do. Then we'll take a break to see if there's any questions about that foundation for today. Then we'll move into heuristics and how they come from and work in engineering. And then we'll look at conjectures by Cohen about something called all is heuristic. Those little underlines mean that the term we're looking at is a heuristic and not some given or absolute term. And we'll see what we mean by that in a minute. So that's how we'll break this up. It'll take a couple minutes to get through part one. We'll break and we'll come back for 2 and 3, and then we'll open it up. Okay. All right. So what are we talking about in terms of engineering? A little bit of background. Almost everyone knows what a lawyer, a doctor, what most professionals do. A lot of TV shows about it. Never an engineering TV show. Almost no one truly knows what an engineer does or what they go about it. I've taught Introduction to Engineering at the university 12 years, and not one student coming in knew just what they were getting into. They were good in math and science, and a lot of them middle class or even upper class, and well, that's where you go. You go to engineering. You could go into physics. I have to tell jokes here, but if you can go into physics, and if you flunk out, you can go into engineering. And if you flunk out of engineering, you can always go to business. And if you flunk out of business, you can always take liberal arts. I think that's what people figured. Anyway, to continue on that, let's see what we're talking about. There are some common ideas. When I would ask people, and especially when I ask my students, what is engineering? Typical responses are applied science. I mean, we all know that. It's trial and error. You keep messing around till you get what you want. And in an awful lot of textbooks, it's an n-step problem-solving procedure. Define the problem, consider all solutions, test alternatives, etc. What do engineers do? The answer to that question so often is, well, they fix things. Okay, if something's broken, you get an engineer. Okay, they make things like rockets to the moon. That's what engineers do. And well, they apply science. These are the very typical responses I get. And those of you who aren't engineers, who haven't worked alongside engineers, maybe culturally what you have understood. Okay, but let's look a little more carefully at what engineers do and how they go about it. Let's see here. Right, here's first, let's contrast it. Most of the people I see in Evo-Devo mailings are researchers, PhDs, scientists. And let's compare and contrast from this diagram what the process is in science and the scientific method and what it is in the engineering method. In the scientific method goes from the concrete, the physical, the sensed, and it does a bunch of measuring and gathers data, and eventually, tries from the data to correlate or find some causality, and they get to an abstract, Einstein's special theory of relativity, etc. Okay, there's a theory. The construction of the atom came from, well, here we see something going on. Let's measure, let's compare. The engineer, on the other hand, starts out in the abstract, okay, or the conceptual. Hey, I know, let's build this, or gee, I'd love to cross this river How can we do that? We get this, you're starting from an abstract. Then you start designing things and pull together ideas. Now you're in the descriptive part. You got a specification. I need this much steel and I need this much cable or whatever, and I need it connected in this such and such a way. And then you produce the physical system, the problem solution, or we'll see later the creative opportunity. But you went from the abstract to the physical. You created something that has never been before, perhaps in the whole universe. Whereas in science, you start with what is, okay, and you develop a theory, which we might say is a heuristic. We'll get to that in a bit. So that's the difference. It's a very different process, okay? And from looking at physical to abstract is one way of comparing those information flows, okay? So to be a little more concise and to drop things down into a category, there's all kinds of engineers out there doing all kinds of engineering. Everything around you right now has been engineered. The cloth you're wearing, the dye in the cloth, the chair you're sitting on, the HVAC system, all of that is all of it's engineered, okay? But to condense it down to what engineers do, they will either solve a problem, okay, or they'll create an opportunity. And a lot of people don't recognize this create opportunities that engineers do. Solving problems, I think we all know what that is, okay? We need a more efficient engine. We need to reduce our carbon or something. Let's solve that problem. Creating opportunities is saying, hey, what if we did this? We could do this. What if we did this? We could go in that direction, and there's a new opportunity. How do they go about it? These just two things, okay? We're going to focus on these two things, and you can take almost anything an engineer does, and they're either solving a problem or they're generating something new, some new opportunity they have come up with. How do they do it? You've probably all read ahead of me now. This is Cohen's description of engineering. Engineering is the use of heuristics to cause the best change in a poorly understood situation with the available resources, okay? And we're going to parse out the key words in this. I'm going to postpone heuristics for a bit, but we'll definitely look at this best change, poorly understood situation, available resource. Let's see what they mean. And of course, you can read Cohen's book and get the detail. So engineering at the top there, it's the use of heuristics, an important word we'll get to later, to cause the best change in a poorly understood situation with available resources, okay? And the best thing I think to do here is look at an example. Here's an engineering problem-solving situation. I have to keep a manned space capsule from burning up in the atmosphere upon re-entry. I got a problem, okay? I do not have, and I will not have, all the information, okay, to fully understand and solve the problem. It's poorly understood, okay? Poorly is a strong word, I think, Cohen used, but so much of engineering, very valuable engineering, walks in, we don't understand what we're dealing with, okay? But we're going to try to do something, okay? So it's just lack of information. You can't have all the information in any situation. The available resources include the SOTA. Cohen uses this all the time. It's state of the art. Whatever the state of the art is, those are the available resources. The state of the art of materials, perhaps modeling capability, all of that is the state of the art. That's the information. That is the knowledge in the human and the gathering of humans. That's a resource. People is a resource, money is a resource, time is a resource. You could use that resource all up. The test materials, models, lab facilities, all of these things are resources available to the engineer trying to solve the problem. People often don't think of time or as a resource, but it's a key resource. Okay, someone's knowledge, somebody's personality can be a resource, okay? abrasive, difficult people who don't cooperate, not so good as a resource. But the best change will be whatever you come up with. Okay, the best change will be whatever you do. The outcome of engineering is always the best. There's no alternative. You take all of your soda and all your decision making, and we'll see in a minute all of your heuristics, and you make a choice and you move forward. That's the best you can do. There's no alternative to the best at the time. Okay, even if you said, well, we're going to have to cut it off here and give it a try. Well, that decision, okay, is part of your soda, the state of the art of your understanding of the problem, and you go forward. It's the best change. And Cohen's book brings, of course, would be argumentative about this. I'm just kind of laying out the just some of the some of the rationale and context of Cohen. Here's another example of an engineering problem. I want to get a delightful gift for my spouse on Valentine's Day today. Okay, I don't have all the information I would like to have, such as knowing exactly what really would delight her, where I could find it, what it might cost, delivery time if ordered online. There's a whole bunch of stuff I don't know. You might even say I poorly understand what's going on. I just don't have all the information yet. My available resources are my soda, things I know about my spouse and her preferences, all available gifts that are out there for sale, money, time. I'm out of time. Today's the day. And those are the available resources in this engineering problem. And the best change, the best that I will do is whatever I do, wherever I get her will be the best from the situation. I challenged my students when we were looking at this engineering process, this engineering method and how ubiquitous it is. I had them to describe in Cohen's terms, by this definition, how solving a calculus problem is an engineering problem, how getting a date for Saturday night is an engineering problem, how consoling a friend who had some loss in her life or his life, that's an engineering problem, because the approach always follows this same way of going about things. And here's the definition again. Engineering is use of heuristics. We'll get to heuristics in a minute, to cause the best change in a poorly understood situation with the available resources. So I'm going to take down my slides, and I encourage you to share any thoughts you have with each other. When I was in university,
just leave them up.
Want me to leave this up?
Yeah, leave the slides up. We don't need to.
Okay, I can't see you. That's my problem.
Yeah. Okay.
I can't. So I can't say. So we'll have a conversation. Can you see? You can't see my face. You only see my screen, right?
No, I can see over to the right.
Okay, so I'm still in my tile. Okay, well, I'm here, and I'll leave the slides up, and I'll go back to one if you want. So we'll take a break and see if there's any questions or comment to each other. Any insight you had might help each other's insights. Like I said, when I taught students, I told them, do not turn in homework you've done on your own. You must work with each other. You must.
So very interesting, Steve. Very different perspective. Thank you. From science, as you said. So I'm wondering, like, when you say an engineer, you assume a human, right? But then the approach of finding a solution of a problem is, can you find a more like universal analog? Let's say, what about if you don't have humans, but you have biology, right? You have animals, so they also want to cross some river. Do they approach the problem in the engineering way, or that's totally different? Or even, I don't know, even way down in chemistry, right? Let's say if you need some protein or something, does nature do things in a similar way? Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll be getting to that. I'm going to come back to that.
Oh, okay.
Come back to the science and
Sorry.
engineering
If I
processes
ask further, yeah.
and
Say,
show
can
the.
I make a comment? So I really like what you've done so far. I know Cohen. I mean, at least I met him once, and I didn't like it as much then as I do now. But one of the other ways of characterizing, you put in problem solving. There's a statement by to a Nobel laureate economist. I'm blanking his name at the moment, but he says Herb Simon, and he says, what is engineering? Well, it's problem solving. What is problem solving? Problem solving is trying to move from a current state of affairs to a future, more desirable state of affairs. I always thought that was a nice expression of what engineers are trying to do. I would say one other thing. I have a colleague who teaches engineering, and we were talking about it. I said, well, the problem solving, and we both just sort of, whoa, wait a minute, because the problem with that is that typically the engineer doesn't know what the problem is as he approaches it. He has some idea, but it may turn out, particularly in a systems context, he may think that this little widget over here is not working. How do I fix it? And it turns out that it's something else in the system that is not operating right and is manifesting there. So that the way in which the engineer approaches and solves a problem is very different from what we used to think of as problem solving in science. It's like, oh, it's deductive, all this sort of thing. And I think that idea, also the last thing, Steve, I think is the idea that engineering is applied science, which I'm sure you struggle with your students. This is obviously wrong. And I mean, science is a nice tool. Have you looked at Walter Vincenti's book, What Engineers Know and How They Know It?
Yeah, I've read that. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's his whole thing. He said, this is not, it's not applied science. Get over it. But science doesn't tell you how to build an airplane, doesn't tell you how to build a cell phone. And, he said, if you want to understand how an airplane works, don't ask a scientist because they ain't got a clue. Anyway, I've enough comments.
Yeah, as Cohen said, scientists didn't put us on the moon. Engineers put us on the moon. Yeah. I was talking to the program manager of the James Webb telescope, and I asked him, what was the mix of your technical people? And it was something like 90% engineers and 10% scientists. That's what it takes. And as I showed the ubiquitousness of the engineering method, as Cohen has parsed out for us, you'll see. You might have an answer to the question: why don't we know that? Why aren't the engineers on stage? Why do they point to the scientists? Why aren't there any engineering television shows? The only engineer I ever knew on television was the father of my three sons. This goes way back. I mean, it's in syndication. He was an engineer, and he designed airplanes or something. Nobody else was.
It was MacGyver. MacGyver was an engineer.
Oh, MacGyver. Yeah, right. That's right. That was the one show. Yeah. Come to think of it. Any other comments or reflections? Or
yeah, I had a question. Do values, the values the engineer chooses, that fits under best change? Is that correct? Is that where the kind of the evaluation of what to do?
Yeah, the values, we'll see in a second. The values are part of the SOTA, the state of the art, and they're a bunch of heuristics. Mm-hmm. You should do this, you shouldn't do that. We'll see that in a second. And he carries that value. It's best to do this. It's wrong to do that. You should trade off in this direction. All those values are heuristics, and we'll see in a minute. And they lead to the best change.
Thank you.
Because the best is whatever happens. There's no going back on it. Everything in the universe is the result of the best change.
So Plato said.
But when you say the best, I kind of struggle with that because obviously you have many choices, right? And under the given limited information, you make one choice. And imagine it doesn't work, right? Imagine you're trying to save the space capsule, but it burns, right? And you say, oh, if I did this, I could have saved the astronauts, right? So,
Yeah,
so isn't it sometimes at least a better choice? But given the limited information and time, we can't make it at the moment.
But what you're going to do, you're going to go from the one best change given your soda at the time and your resources and your information. The best was this capsule that failed. That pours into your soda, okay? And you think back on what happened, you change the materials and the angle of entry or whatever you have to do. And now you've got a new soda. You've got some different resources, maybe some modeling, and now you go out and create another best change.
Steve,
That might fail, and that might fail too. But
Steve,
have
I
the
make a comment. So Plato had this. He has a dialogue called the Timaeus, and in Timaeus, the Timaeus is asked, "How did the universe come to be as it is?" And he said, "Well, there were many possible paths." He said, "I can give you a probable path that could have come this way." And then he says, "But there's one thing for certain: it always moves to the good. If you like the best." I think that's essentially what you're saying the same thing.
Yeah,
as
a matter of fact, I think Cohen's
Plato,
quite a
yeah.
philosopher, and he points to Plato and others in his
Timaeus,
development.
Because Timaeus is all about an engineering, seeing the universe as an evolving engineering enterprise. So.
Oh yeah.
And can I ask a question in the sense that if humans are starting a war, and we are talking about universe makes always the best choices, is there then a context where we can consider war as a best choice?
Yeah, if you're SOTA, if in your SOTA, and you are the demagogue or the leader, and in your SOTA, it's war is worth the risk of of the rewards. That's going to be your best choice at the time. Best is it's almost like the word exclusive, the way Plato or the philosopher talked about it. Best is not a comparison of it's the best is the only. I think people are always looking for the best thing. Gee, what's the next best thing? Well, the next best thing is whatever comes out. It's a concept.
It sounds a bit like the adjacent possible in the sense that what happens. But if there is someone starting a war, it's mainly someone who has power over a country, and the people in the country maybe don't agree with that, but they have to sort of fill in the ideas of the one in charge. I don't know whether it's the best choice for both of them.
Yeah, that's right. The SOTA at the time is rally around the leader. The SOTA, the value, what's in that state of the art is all these, we'll see in a minute, heuristics. Okay, at that point to going in that direction and taking that choice. It may lead to the best choice may be totally disagreeable or miserable or failure, but was the best at the time. One of the examples that Cohen gives is a football game. It's the fourth quarter and you're falling behind, and the best, and you lose the game because the coach decided to change out quarterbacks or something. That was the best he could do. You can't go back and say he should have or whatever. He did what his SOTA presented. That was the best change, but they lost.
Yeah, so you don't allow for any mistakes here. So if you make a mistake, that's still the best. I kind of imagine that I mean, you could call it, as you said earlier, what is realized or what's possible or what is actualized. But when you say the word the best, you automatically compare it to something else, right? One is better than the other. So what are you comparing it to if there is nothing else?
Yeah, it's
Can I maybe hook in on that comment, Georgie? Because I guess I've worked as a chemical engineer, and I recognize the definitions, but what we always did was, when there was something to work on, we generated a large number of possible approaches,
Yeah.
and then had a rather formal procedure to select the best approach for the time being.
Mhm.
So it's not just, let's say, one approach and then just try to see whether it works, and if it doesn't work, it's too bad.
Mhm.
But we always try to have multiple approaches, select the best one, and have on the way always a process to check whether maybe we should switch. In our case, there was a selection process already at the beginning.
Yeah, but the word switch means you realize that that was not the best, and there was another one that was the best.
It was the best at the time. You know, one of the things you see to deal with this, Stephen, Leo, again, is always defending is the person, whoever's acting, and there's multiple actors, obviously. So whoever's acting is always trying to do the best as they understand it. Okay, so everybody seeks the best. Plato goes on, who would ever seek to do something bad? He says this is impossible. Everybody is seeking to do the good. Somebody starts a war, they think because they're going to make the world better with that war. And people can go along with it, they don't go along with it. But it's the seeking, they're always seeking to do the best, and there are multiple players. So when you say, well, is the universe in total going to the best? Well, that's the claim, but I don't know if you could justify, knowing that. I mean, I believe that, but
Right, and we can't argue it in these 90 minutes, but we can present where Cohen was come from and try to get at least a preliminary understanding of what he was saying, so we can kind of get the picture. Shall we move on?
Actually, I was wondering if you could maybe address Jim's question in the chat, which is, how does Robert Rosen's modeling relation, and how do models in general fit into this definition of heuristics? It specifically, science seems to be, as Jim was saying, having the right model as it maybe a precursor to engineering. I mean, how do you see that, and how do you see models?
Yeah, it will become part of the SOTA, and we'll get to that now. Your model is just another set of heuristics that you're using. And see, I can't, because I'm full screen, I can't see you guys or access the chat while I've got slides up.
Yeah, maybe if you try those little hamburgers on the side, the little 3-button thing on the very right-hand side, the 3 dots, the vertical ellipsis, it might give you a.
What do you need
now
to
do you
see
see
it?
both? So now do you see both?
I can't see my slides.
Okay.
I see you.
Oh,
Yes.
Now I don't see the slides.
Yeah.
okay,
I'm just not familiar with the Google setup. Zoom always.
sure.
All right.
So why don't you just go ahead? We're ready to go.
Okay, I'll
Yeah, we're ready. We're ready to roll. Thank you, Steve.
Okay. I will go back then. Let's see how I go back. All right, you can see that, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So that gives you another 10 minutes if you want 25 instead of 15 for the next one.
Okay. After the break, so there's the definition, and here we go. So let's look at the heuristics part of that. We looked at best change, poorly understood situation, available resource. Let's look at heuristics. Cohen's definition of a heuristic is this: anything that provides a plausible aid or direction in the solution of a problem or creation of an opportunity, but is in the final analysis unjustified, incapable of justification, and potentially fallible. And I emphasize here plausible, unjustifiable, and potentially fallible. Engineers do this all the time. This is where we engineers live. Hey, this might work. I can't justify it, but I think it's okay. I don't have all the information, but I think this is going to work. It could fail. Yeah, sure. There in many walks of life, you just can't. At least you don't think you are dealing with plausible, unjustifiable, potentially fallible things, but all things are. And what engineers have found out is it works. Cohen talks about the piece of the engineer. The engineer is satisfied with working with things that are just only plausible. And you can't justify them except, well, it used to work and I think it'll work again. It's potentially fallible. Yeah, this may not work. And we go our merry way. We sleep fine. Okay, we don't have any arguments about this. It's the way the universe is, and we accept it. We engineers. So this is the definition: something that's plausible, unjustified, potentially fallible, but should get us in the right direction. That's what engineering has always been. And damn it, engineering is probably the most successful human endeavor ever. All around us, there's buildings and airplanes in the air, and the clothing we wear, and the food that got processed. All of it's engineering, and it really, really works. Damn it, there's what, 7-8 billion of us now, all built on plausible, unjustifiable, potentially fallible heuristics. Cohen spends a lot of time on this. He has maybe 10 or 12 properties of a heuristic to help us if we're looking at something and trying to decide, is it a heuristic or not? He provides something. Here's one: if a concept produces paradoxes, unexplained complexities, or leaves things out, or departs from expected results, you probably have a heuristic, not any kind of a law or principle or truth. If the literature treating a concept is enormous, thousands of articles and historic, hundreds of years, we can assume rightly that the matter is far from settled, and we're dealing with a heuristic. The concept of light. Light is a wave. Light is a particle. Light is a ray. If the way you are using light in your experiment or in your theory is a heuristic of light. Light is just a heuristic. And he has many ways of looking at that. Here are some sample heuristics in engineering just to drive it home. Model of the atmosphere is a composition of 80% nitrogen, 20% oxygen, with an ambient temperature of 20 degrees C. That's the heuristic we're going to use as we do some kind of modeling or try to see what's going on in some situation. It's a heuristic. It's partial. It could be fallible. Okay, we don't have enough information to describe it exactly. We're going to go with this. That's a heuristic. Can't justify it really, except it's probably okay and it's worked before. A properly designed bolt should have at least 1.5 turns, not 1.378 turns. Okay, and not 1.565 turns, but turn and a half. All right, we'll live with that. Turn and a half. Have a team review all calculations. It's a heuristic. That should get us in the right direction. Seemed to work before. Let's use it again. Don't go too far beyond the soda that we have right now in one step. Solve only likely solvable problems. And I think if there's one thing that has made engineering so successful, it's that they don't go too far past the soda. Do things in little bitty steps. Okay. And we'll see how I think nature does that too. Too big an evolutionary leap, you're gone. Okay. Little bitty evolutionary steps. Okay. All right. So this is these are heuristics in engineering. Everything engineers use are heuristics. I'm talking in promotion of Cohen now, but it is exciting. Here's some heuristics in life. I can drive safely at 10% over the speed limit and not get a speeding ticket. That's a heuristic a lot of us use, I guess. There's no law or principle there. It's not true, but I'll do it. Drinking coffee regularly is good for me. Drinking coffee regularly is bad for me. These are heuristics about life. We should stand 6 feet away from others during a pandemic. Maybe why not 4 feet? Why not 8 feet? Who knows? Vote Republican. Another heuristic as we go about life. Okay. Means we want to. All right. Now I hope you're getting a good perspective on heuristics. These are plausible, unjustifiable, possibly fallible things that we use. And I tell you what, again, there are 7 or 8 billion people, and the whole world has been built on heuristics. Now let's go to science. Okay, I'm going to take from this is all seat of the pants stuff, rules of thumb and approximations. Okay, now science says they've got something a little better. So here's that old picture we saw before, where science goes from reality to the conceptual, and engineering starts at conceptual and comes down with something that's never been before, a problem solution or some or created opportunity. Okay, now let's consider this branch of knowledge called science, and consider this. And Cohen does at length. Engineering was practiced long before there was science. Engineering is not applied science. It was here a long time. Science is only, a few centuries old, really, the practice of science and learning the scientific method and techniques. It was always engineering before that. The scientific method evolved as a subset of the highly successful engineering method. It's just a heuristic. It is just one way of doing things among many. Science is applied engineering, says Cohen. Its heuristics include theory, time, causality, entropy. All of these things are heuristics from the perspective of Cohen and from his argument. That's the best they are, and that's the best they'll ever be. Okay, they'll change as we evolve. Concepts change, and these things become more pointed. They become more useful. They're a little more reliable, but they could fail anytime. In the engineering method, the scientific method is just another heuristic. Engineers use all kinds of heuristics. Their value system, time, materials, all of these. This material will work. If we give it this much time, we're okay. All of those heuristics. And then we'll go to science too. Science says this. All right, we'll use that. That's the idea. If we go back here, if I look at this, I've got a physical system. I'm looking at this upward motion of scientific method. I've got an object to study, and I want to come up with a theory. The fact that I can look at something physical, gather data, do measurements, and come up with a theory, well, that's just one big heuristic. It's just maybe you can do that. People have studied things and come up with the data and come up with very bad models, very bad theories that weren't predictive after all. Okay, so it's one big heuristic, this scientific method of look at the physical, gather data, generalize from it. Well, that's like an engineering flow. Okay, it's just a subset of how we go about engineering. So some heuristics in science: Newton's laws. Okay, mathematics. See Gödel. I'm not sure how you say that. That self-referential systems can't be self-referential. So mathematics itself, Cohen spends pages and pages developing that these logic, induction, deduction, causality, position, velocity. He goes at length to show that these are heuristics. And again, what is a heuristic? It is, I'll read it. It is the, I'll get there. Anything that provides a plausible aid or direction in the solution of a problem, okay, or creating an opportunity, but is in the final analysis unjustified, incapable of justification, and potentially fallible. And all of these things historically, that's been the case. So he says these are just heuristics. So let's tie it into ED, and then we'll look at this, as it says at the top, this all is heuristic, which is just a heuristic, okay, and this universal method. I'm sure you're reading this ahead of me. Engineers solve problems and they create opportunities. To solve the problem means, maintain the system, fix it, keep our equilibrium, do work to store. We can't lose information. Keep this thing going. Expend energy to assure current-free energy flows. Okay, all systems do that. That's Evo-Devo. That is maintaining one system while it evolves, while it moves out to get more information. Create opportunities, evolve, develop, do work to increase and gather more information, expend energy to achieve increased self-benefiting energy flows. That's what the universe seems to be doing. We here in ED, study this and share it and move it from a lot of different directions. But what engineers do, they do what the universe does. They maintain this system and they try to expand it, and they do it carefully. And as the next slide shows, okay, what about this engineering method generally? This is my last slide, really. As the engineering method embodies the characteristics of ED, we can project that the engineering method is the universal method in itself, and employ the heuristic. All is heuristic. Exploring the engineering method, which is an intimate human experience of ED. I am ED. I eat and breathe and poop and move ED. That's what I am, because I use the engineering method. To be a human being is to use the engineering method. To be a human is to be an engineer. We might further inform our understanding of countless processes in the universe if we look at them as this engineering method, the use of heuristics. I've got a couple other slides. So we'll open this up. Let me go my last two slides. Maybe we can come back to this one. But Cohen wrote a cone, and this is it here. And he talks about how our intelligence took mountains with an underline, the heuristic mountains, and tried to turn them into mountains, something, the truth, the exact, undivisible. Okay, but this sort of Zen cone shows that no, all is heuristic, whether you want it to be that way or not. One last slide. I'm sure to share these slides. There is an early PDF available here that outlines a lot of what I said that Cohen published. I think it was back in the 80s and 90s when he was first developing this. And his book, the 2003 book, it's out there. It's been out of print for probably 15 years. But for $100 or $200, you can get one, or you can ask me. I took all the ones from school. They let me have them when I retired, and I've got 20 or 30 of them. And if you want one, I'll send you one. If you want one, because I've got some. It might be marked up or something from students, but I've got one if you're interested and you don't want to spend that much money. Okay, let me I'll try to get out of here. Okay.
Thank you, Steve. Great.
And I have one more thing. Students 1 year were really taken by this, and the seniors created a T-shirt that says, "Got heuristics?" There it is on the front, and on the back, it's they put Cohen's cone on there. And I got Billy is still alive, I think. I was in touch with him 5 or 6 years ago, and I sent him a T-shirt, and we talked a little bit about how the students responded to it. And I knew Billy maybe 20 years ago in ASWE. We were on the same education committee at the time, the name of which I forget. But anyway, I will stop presenting. I can open up any slide you want me to go back to if you'd like.
Wonderful. Can you see us now, Steve?
I can see all. Yep. Hi.
Yay.
Right.
I was hoping if everyone here, when you ask a question for the first time, if you could introduce yourself, that'd be wonderful for the community, for the video. I'd like to ask you a question. I'm John Smart, and my interests are accelerating change and intelligence and networks, and how evolution and development influence those, particularly networks. You know, how do networks change? And I wanted to ask you, Steve, how do you apply this in your, in your teaching? What is the, how do you introduce this concept to your students, and what did it really mean to you? What's the main reason you brought home those 30 books? How did it change you?
Well, I introduced it to the students, like in the early slides. I said, I had all these, I at university, and where I retired from was a magnet high school of science and technology. So we had all these gifted students from a dozen local high schools came in, and gifted in math and science, and they were choosing, probably 80–90% were choosing an engineering degree. The other 20% were the life sciences or physics. And I simply, having been an engineer, I'm professional engineer, retired, did a bunch of engineering in my career. I kind of knew what it was, and it was something very different than what I was told coming out of engineering school. And I wanted to bring that fresh idea and that real idea to them, so they could say, gee, is this what I really wanted to do? Or they could say, yeah, I'm really in the right place. I wanted them, it was for their development and their career choices, that they understand what they're walking into. And Billy was an eye-opener to me, helped me reflect on my own engineering experience. So I brought that to them. And the fact that they made that t-shirt and they could see all of the problems in their life are all human activity is engineering activity, and it's all ED activity. Of course, I brought Evo-Devo to the classroom as well. I also taught modern physics at this high school, and one of the subsections was universal Darwin. I used one of John Campbell's books as a textbook, all to inform them and raise their consciousness as they made career choices.
Thank you. I see we have Terry's next hand up.
Okay, hang on. Yeah. So a couple of things.
Can you introduce yourself, Terry? Can you introduce yourself?
So I'm Terry. What do you want?
Tell us about you. Yeah,
I'm associated with Portland State. I started out as a physicist, a mathematical physicist, and I felt that the scientific view of the world was sort of stupid because I wasn't in it, and it was all deterministic and stuff. And so I did a bunch of graduate work on limits of science, and anyway, eventually morphed into what I'm into now. It's called philosophy of engineering. And engineering, they're actually engineers in the world. So it's self-referentially coherent, which science is not. Anyway, so so that's what I'm doing. I run a whole bunch of programs. So I want to just start with an anecdote. This anecdote is I ran into a guy. And we were talking about some of this stuff, and he was an engineer. He said, I started out in science, and I took all the basic courses, doing the physics and stuff in college, and partway through anyway. And he said, and then I decided going to engineering. So I thought, you go into engineering? Do I need to take those basic courses again? And he thought, no, maybe I will. I should probably just do it. And then he says to me, completely different course. Okay. You had to think about that one. So, but one thing I say, it's really true, but people don't see it. So, Steve, the other thing, the uncertainty thing, I think is really important about not knowing, what the problem is and stuff. You emphasize that, and Billy emphasizes it. And what that means, in effect, one of the ways of putting that is to say that every engineering action is also a question. Okay, everything you do. I mean, everything we do every day. I think I'll do this. Is that going to work again? So every statement is also a question. Every action is also a question. And that's how engineering inquiry works, which is rather different from the model of scientific inquiry. Anyway, so that's, I mean, the whole idea of engineering inquiry as a natural process of, acting, being an engineer in the world, I think is a good and strong concept. The other thing, one of the things people talk about is how do you define engineering? One is problem solving. Another is, well, what is the problem? And the general idea is it's the problem of design. So I explained this in my stuff. I said, well, okay, so how are you going to design the irrigation of your fields? Okay, well, it's agricultural design. Yeah, how are you going to design your house? Well, that's, basic architecture and stuff. And how about your neighborhood? And how about your city? Are you going to organize? That's urban design. Okay, and then, well, maybe how are we going to design our economy? Are we going to have tariffs? Are we going to have a common currency? That's another design question. And then, well, how are we going to design our government? I mean, the American Constitution is a design document. Okay, it's a theoretical, it's an experimental design document about how we should live and get on together and so forth. Hopefully it's self-referentially, we can correct it as we go, supposedly. And at that point, when you're asking about government, you're at Plato's Republic too, because that's exactly what Plato is asking in the Republic, is how to organize, a system. And anyway, so, and the last thing is, Steve Goldman I met him when I met Billy. He did some early stuff on engineering, and the general sense was, I said, well, what do engineers do? Well, one comment was, well, whatever the corporate bosses or the government tells them to do. Okay, and now that's changed. Okay, and I always have in my talks, there's the front cover of Harvard Business Review, and it says evolution of design thinking. And the idea is, wait a minute, how to organize the government, how to organize a corporation. Organizing a corporation, that's a design problem, okay? That's a design problem. So everything is design. And there's a couple of books out about that whole thing in Silicon Valley about the internal design and how to design things. And one's called A More Beautiful Question. Anyway, I've said enough, but the point is it's all design. And I'm designing my life. How much time do I spend with my kids? How much time do I spend working? How much time do I spend exercising? Those are all design questions, okay? So design is everything, and it's all heuristic, and there's inquiry every time I try something. It's a new statement, but it's also a question.
Before you move on, Terry, could I ask you, how does constructal law fit into what you were what Steve's been describing about Billy's work?
Well, I think it does. I think it does a lot, but I don't want to, I just did an interview program yesterday with Bijan and I, this guy Pedro out of Spain, and I'll post it to you guys. It's just because Bijan gives a really nice, Bijan is like brilliant, but he's also, he's hard to understand. And so maybe I'll do a talk on that down line here for you guys.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Georgie, you were second up. If anyone wants to put their hand up, it'd be great if everybody asked Steve a question and introduce yourself.
All right, Steve, thank you again. Great talk. It causes, at least for me, a lot of interesting kind of mental experiments. So I'll go back to my previous question. So if this is, as you say, the only way or the universal way, do you see it working in nature outside of, because when you talk about engineering, you assume only human activity, right? But then, like when you talk about the universe, then you assume everything else. So let's say in biology, you have mutations, right? So those kind of heuristics, right? You don't know what's going to happen, but most of them get selected away because they are not beneficial to reproduction or to the survival, to the fitness.
Mm-hmm.
And only very, very small % of them do.
Yeah.
And let's say, if I go back to your best choice, if that was, well, maybe you could say under that circumstance where the mutation happened, that was the only choice. But then if nature doesn't select for that, it waits for more mutations to select the one that will advance the species. Could you say that that was the best one? So is there broader applicability of this engineering method or heuristics in general, right, in nature as a whole? I don't know, maybe there isn't, but I'm just trying to apply it as we speak. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, only to say that Cohen does spend many pages talking about why did he use the word best and why does best come out, and I've accepted it for a long time and I know what he's talking about, and I've gone through my call it resistance or learning is why best. Now I just understand it as what it is, what he was trying to say. It's just that nothing can happen except something happening one step from reality right now. Nothing else can happen. There may be a bunch of possibilities, but the only one that survives is this one. And humans call it the best one. That was the best choice I could make. It was, well, Cohen reflects and says, well, it was the only choice you could make, because your soda stopped there. You decided to change quarterbacks. That was the best you had at the time, and it failed, but nothing else could happen. You don't have Schrodinger's cat of the coach changing a quarterback and not changing a quarterback. You did the one thing, and that's what you have. I wanted to go back to Terry a little bit, talking about this problem solution heuristics. I've been reading most recently, I don't have it with me, it's upstairs, about the interaction of information of a system within other systems. And going back to problem solving, well, when you solve a problem, the problem keeps changing. The more you understand, there's a change in the problem that you have to solve. You learn a little bit more. Your soda's a little bigger. The definition of the problem, the directions all keep changing. That's analogous to a living system or a system, going with ED processes. As it advances into a niche, there's an exchange of information, and the niche changes because there's been an exchange of information. And as the one system is moving into the niche has to change, and eventually it's possible the niche becomes something completely different than it started out with, and as well as this system coming to the niche. So I see that problem solution elsewhere in evolution, and I'm not that well read nor an academic in complex systems. It just enthralls me, and I understand it as I read it, and I haven't had the time or discipline to very carefully transcribe Cohen to some of the others who are writing out there about evolution.
Okay.
And I think, Martin, you are next, sir. Could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Martin van
sorry.
Duin. I'm new to the group. I've met Gerard Jagers before. We have had some discussions, and I think by now I know Georgie quite well because we have regular discussions every month. I find it a little bit hard to articulate the question that I have, because the statement that science is let's say a sort of one possible heuristic that was a little bit against my intuition, especially because I would say science is not about being plausible or fallible. I would say it's just the other way around. Science is about being infallible and let's say and fully correct. So I have some difficulties with the statement of the way science fits in heuristic. If you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yes, I understand that. Understand with the underline under the word "n." Okay, with the from the engineering perspective or Cohen's perspective, the goal of science, the reason for science, is the development of better heuristics. That's what science is all about. Here's this engineering process, and everybody's doing their engineering for a few centuries, and along came this science, and I think Galileo has really founded this look at the world and gather data, make comparisons. Its service to humankind was to develop better heuristics, and those heuristics flow into engineering as we develop more. We improve and increase our physical presence and the flow of free energy. That's from the engineering perspective. Science is here using engineering processes, gathering data, building engineering contraptions to capture a particle to come up with better heuristics. That's what Cohen, that's how he talks about it.
I'd like to ask, would you agree with would you agree with the idea that science is finding the most universally applicable heuristics, that it's a special heuristic, observe, hypothesis, experiment, results, that four-step process is a particularly fundamental method for finding the most universally durable and applicable heuristics? Or would you not agree with that?
You're asking whom?
Asking you, Steve. I'm sorry. Yeah. Science from the engineering perspective has a special niche in that it's going for larger heuristics, universal heuristics. That's its goal. Finding the smallest of particle, describing the largest of space. That became helpful, and it has grown as a sub-method within engineering. Again, reflecting Cohen's perspective. It's especially powerful because the heuristics coming out of it are especially broad and very predictive. Okay, so we have Terry, Georgie, and then Gerard, and hopefully Julian and James will get on, so everyone gets to ask a question. Hi, Julian. So Terry.
Yeah, so I wanted to address this. I think you said in there somewhere that Cohen says, science is engineering research. Is that something like that? And I think the idea that science, there's a problem with the idea of scientific knowledge. Okay, so let's say I have this scientific view of the world, and then I can say, well, how did you come up with that? Well, I just, I did this study. So question is, the scientific view of the universe part of the scientific universe? Okay, so is it self-inclusive? And I think the answer is no, because there are, if the world is totally deterministic, there's no inquiry. How did you come up with it? Well, I did that. I'm out. I mean, there's the idea. It's a spectator view of reality, and it's not. The expression is it's not. The scientific view of the world is not self-referentially coherent. Okay, because it can't make sense of itself. It can't account for itself. And the idea, the question of what is the relation between scientific knowledge and engineering knowledge? Well, I say I go with Petrosky, who puts it quite bluntly. He says everything you thought of as science is actually engineering, because the engineer is in the world. The engineer is an inquirer, a natural inquirer, as I pointed out before. Every action involves a question. So real knowledge comes through the engineering process and the engineering learning and development and implementation. Science is a sort of a spin-off of the of engineering. And there is, in some sense, there is no scientific knowledge as an independent entity. I mean, it has no account, there's no way to account for it. The only way to account for science is as some sort of sub-component of engineering. So anyway, so that's my first point. One other point, just saying what's going on with, in the modern discussion of this stuff, there's a lot about dialectics, and that is that somebody's talking about, the guy starts this war or that war. Well, the idea is there's a group in China, and they have an idea called field philosophy or something like that. And basically, it's saying, you know, I'm this smart, you know, engineer, and I'm going into this situation to solve this problem. And you say the first thing is to shut up and listen to the people who are in that situation, and listen first and then talk. You know, abandon your expertise when you walk into a situation. And the point is that when, as an engineer, when you're going in, particularly like social, economic things, it makes obvious sense that you want to know, you're not going in there and fixing it yourself. There's the Chinese thing, wei wa wei. It says doing by not doing. And the message of that is basically, you know, you don't go in there like, I know what to do here, and I'm going to fix your, you know, your corporation, I'm going to fix your society. Or something. No, you go in and you have a dialogue. And again, going back to Plato and stuff, the process of evolution, of somebody calling the other day cognitive evolution, is a dialectic process. And that's a big part of the engineering heuristic today. So.
Okay.
George, you next, sir?
Yeah, sorry I didn't introduce myself last time, but yeah, my name is Georgie, and I've been with EDU for a while now, so I'm one of the co-directors with John. So I'm kind of hearing two opposite things almost in the same sentence, where you say that science, so I agree, engineering was first. People didn't know about science before they built tools. And then you say, okay, it will spin off from engineering. Well, if it was a spin-off from engineering, then you engineers must have decided that it's useful. Why would you spin it off? Why would you create it in the first place if it's so useless and so inconsistent and so pointless, right? And then, like, let's say Newton developed the theory of gravity. And, you know, next time you drop your pen from your table, you know exactly where it's going to fall. It's going to fall on the ground. There are no options, like, it's not heuristic. You're not guessing anything. So first, I understand that initially, if you try to explain something, you have many theories, but then you go and check them. And if they're wrong, you discard them. You're not arrogant to say that you're always right. And you do trial and error, but then eventually when you come up on something that is reproducible, that always works, then you know what's happening. Then you are informed, right? You're not guessing in the dark.
But Georgie, there are no scientific laws that give perfect predictions. If I drop the pin, it kind of depends on the trajectory that I put it in and so forth.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Love science. It's a great tool, but it's not like these universally perfect predictions come from it. It is nonsense.
Well, I just said it's not. Okay. I agree. It's not universal. We still don't know how the universe started, or what's dark matter, or what's dark energy. But there comes the humility to say, I don't know, and I'm gonna look and I'm gonna try to figure it out. I don't say I know everything and this is it, right? And insist on something that you don't truly know, right? So we have to be humble to recognize what we know and what we don't know, and to honestly test our hypotheses to check whether they are true or not, right? And if they are not, we have to discard them right away.
No, I don't think, look, this is nonsense. We don't have any theories that are, look, Georgie, there are no theories that are without exceptions. I mean, this was a basic, Popper, lactose fire oven stuff. There are no scientific theories without exceptions. I mean, if you wanted to get a theory before you get out of the lab, I want it to be absolutely right. You never get out of the lab. They all have exceptions. They all have.
Terry, I want to put
right,
you on the hot seat for a sec. On a hot seat just for a second. I want to ask: do you think that the scientific method with relatively little evolutionary variation is going to be a universal and all?
What is the scientific method? What is a scientific method?
Observe, hypothesize, experiment, and then check your results and try and find heuristics that are as universally or generally applicable as possible. So, from the idea from the idea that information is a difference that makes a difference. And so certain specific types of information, like the codes in a physics textbook, are going to be persistent for much longer and be more applicable in more environments. So my question is, do you think that's kind of a special thing you're going to find developmentally? Do you privilege science as a special approach to heuristics, or do you not? That's really what I was wondering.
First of all, I mean, my one of my main mentors, Paul Feyerabend, wrote a great book called Against Method, in which he argued that there is no scientific method. If you look at the actual scientific results, you can say, oh, this nice little hypothesis experiment. If you actually look and say, how did Newton use that to come up with this stuff? No. Did did Maxwell use, is that the way Maxwell came up with stuff? No. And you look at how scientists, so to speak, came up with stuff. It was not by this hypothesis, experiment, organize things method. Number one, if you're in a completely fixed environment with everything's the same, you can use that. It's very useful method. If I'm in a box where nothing's changing. But
so don't you think the apple falling on the head is observe, hypothesize, thought experiment, and then try and check your equation out?
The background of that is just is hugely complicated. I mean, his whole idea of gravity is a quagmire. And the other thing is, one thing you need to grasp is when quantum theory came along. I mean, it's like Bohr said, this is not a classical type theory. All the theories that were classical, that you want to think of probably as science, are all superseded by quantum theory. Now, can we make sense of quantum theory? No. Was it Paul Davies? No. Sean Carroll just put up a thing about why after 100 and some years we still can't make sense of quantum theory. And part of it, I just wrote an article, you could look it up, my ResearchGate call. It says quantum theory is only understandable from an engineering point of view, which I think is true, because it's got participants in it and they're making actions. Anyway, I think the idea, you guys have this silly idea of science and scientific method that's just not real. And engineer, like the engineer is like, yeah, I realize science is a great tool. Look at Vincenti again. Vincenti goes after this in some detail.
Terry, can I maybe break in on your hypothesis about science?
Yes.
I was first very happy with George's explanation, and now you sort of break down everything that we hope to know about science, in the sense that it never works and you always get new theories, and so the old ones can be discarded. And I think in a sense that's right.
I don't think you discard them, we build on them.
Yeah, we built them. Yeah, and then we built something that's a little bit better, and then we built something that's better. And I think it's quite a general perception that then the whole old idea was wrong. Well, what shall we say about that?
I'm sorry.
It's the perception is that it's wrong and that it's being replaced by something that's completely better.
Yes.
And that's not the case. Normally we have it right for 90%, and then we increase it by 5% by a new theory, which adds some extra dimensions normally. And then we add another 2% by a theory that adds very minor additional dimensions, or a new way of looking at the same thing. So we approach it, I think, step by step towards a limit.
But it's not
And-
no, it's not going towards the limit number one. And the step by step, as Thomas Kuhn pointed out, are discontinuous steps. They're conceptually discontinuous. It's not like this logical process that we go through and we do another experiment and then we build on the same thing. No, we're making revolutionary discontinuous steps all the time. You guys obviously didn't suffer as I did, the 20th century philosophy of science, where they came out with this, logical empiricism. They go, and the people who actually put that forth from Vienna, they actually abandoned it. But the tragedy is the scientific community said, "Oh yeah, that's the way science works. It doesn't work that way. It never worked that way." And it's just this image you have of science as being this logical, systematic process, and it's not. The way knowledge.
Why don't we let Gerard finish his thoughts? I mean, he's being interrupted right now.
The what?
I think
Gerard,
Gerard should finish.
Yeah, Gerard, you had a question. You want to finish your question, and then I was hoping that Julian, you could get in, and I was hoping Jim could get in and tell us how modeling relations is the general case for science. I really
Steve,
love to hear Jim talk about that. So we all would.
And Steve respond.
Gerard?
Yeah.
You want to finish?
About my question? Oh, okay. I was thinking a bit like the difference between engineering and science. Of course, engineers use science, so they know science and they are scientists in that sense. But maybe there can be some sort of difference in the sense that maybe scientists are more directed at finding the abstract patterns, and engineers are more aiming at building things using in part the knowledge that science builds, and in part using knowledge that is just practical knowledge. So it's a continuum, I think, where some people are more directed, even when they are scientists, at practical things, and then I think they are more like engineers. And there are some which are completely loose of engineering. Like I think Einstein didn't do very much experimenting. He just was working with theory. And then you could, in this continuum, you could consider him very much a theorist, and then a theoretical scientist, and maybe the other people more practical scientists. I don't know, but that could help to sort of bring the extremes together that maybe are a continuum anyway. So that would be sort of, yeah, it was a question like, can we do it like this? But maybe it's more my conviction that this would be a solution to the problem. But okay.
Thanks. Julian, did you saw your hand up? Did you want to jump in? And can you introduce yourself, sir?
Oh,
yeah, there it is. Yeah, sorry, I'm at the slight disadvantage of having missed the entire talk. I'm really sorry about that. It's St. Valentine's Day, and I was doing family stuff, and I couldn't make it. But I'm glad to catch the end of it. My name's Julian Goff. I'm mostly a writer, and I'm writing a book on exploring cosmological natural selection and the idea that the universe is an evolved entity, Darwinian evolution of universes. But yeah, I'm not sure what usefully I can say here. I think a lot of the time what's happening is, if I'm grasping what's going on here, there's two types of science, like Kuhn said, and some of you are describing one type, and some of you are describing the other type, and acting like so. But they both happen, and one is the iterative form of science where there is a theory and you expand on it step by step, as Gerard was saying, 2% better, 5% better, 3% better, and then there's the discontinuous breakthrough science, and I think, and which happens in very strange ways, as Feuerbach says, So I think they're both part of science. I think the classic version of hypothesize and try and do that is actually a significant subset of science is done by the scientific method. But what is intriguing is that the great breakthroughs are very seldom done that way, and we don't have a single definition of science that lets both of these have free play. I mean, like, you know, like the Sleepwalkers, you know, that book by Arthur Koestler, about how, you know, how the breakthrough into heliocentric, you know, view of the solar system was made. It wasn't anything like the way you think of as a scientific method. He sleepwalked his way through it. He threw out analogies. It was almost like a dreamlike process of getting closer and closer to this breakthrough, because there was no language. There was no scientific language, but there was no language at all to describe this new way of thinking about how planets and stars related to each other. It didn't exist, and he had to. You have to go beyond science to make new science in a way that's very paradoxical. That's I guess what I want to say.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a few minutes left. Jim, are you still here, or did you jump off? Oh. Yeah, Jim, could you explain the Rosen's modeling relation and how you think that's kind of a particularly universal way of thinking of I guess heuristics, right? I mean, it's below science, it's below everything. I think we're not hearing you. I think you might be on mute. Yeah, you're on mute. Yep.
I was on mute.
Yep.
So I'm Jim Kaufman. I'm a scientist. I'm a professional scientist, and I take issue with some of the things that have been said here. I just want to say that. But I'm not going to go into that. I'll just say what I said in the comments. I think it's a false dichotomy to talk about science versus engineering. And a lot of what I've heard of the critique of science is a straw man, a critique of a straw man that doesn't exist in reality. So but I'll leave it at that. To go to the modeling relation, which Robert Rosen developed and wrote about in his book, Life Itself, and in an earlier book, Anticipatory Systems, really in trying to understand what life is, and life is relational. And Rosen talked a lot about how the universe uses, you know, the problem with science, a problem with science is this reliance on predicative logic, whereas the universe, you know, is impredicative. It's self-referential, and you can't get around that. And he talked about that, and the way he dealt with it was with category theory, which is beyond me because I'm not a mathematician. But the modeling relation basically is you have a natural system, and embedded within that natural system, you have a system that can develop a formal system. And the formal system is a way of kind of developing predictions about what's happening in the normal, in the natural system. And so it does that by encoding through symbols. So it's a very semiotic thing. So what it takes in about the natural system and then decoding them into actions. So that's going to be where your engineering comes in. But it's also where science comes in, because the decoding into actions, if it's realistic, is going to produce something that is kind of congruent with the natural system, the larger system. And key to the modeling relation, which Rosen talked about, was the formal system is going to be a system that has dynamics that are much faster than the natural system. So that's how you get anticipation. And he talked about this as a way of how you can get final cause, as Aristotle talked about final cause, because the problem scientists historically have had with final cause is how do you have something in the future that's causing something in the past? Well, if you have an anticipatory system that's anticipating through its formal model something that is going to happen at a much slower rate in the natural system, that's how you get final cause in the Rosen conception. So with Rosen, the modeling relation is fundamental to life itself, and it's a scientific method, whatever that is. But what scientists do is kind of formalize the modeling relation, and you know, engineers do that too. I would say, from my perspective, you can't do science without engineering, but you can't do engineering without science, and that's why it's a false dichotomy. Now, you can paint your straw man of what science has become, and science goes down lots of dead ends, and you have paradigm shifts and those sorts of things. But science is much bigger than kind of trying to pigeonhole it into these kind of little straw men. And I'll shut up there.
Thank you. Steve, you get final word since you're the presenter here. What do you want to say off of this? And thanks again for the wonderful talk.
Yeah, it was very fruitful for me to meet Cohen and use his book, and I was hoping it would be for all of us. I have two things to say. One, if you look here, it says Steve Kerouac, and I'm not Steve Kerouac. That's my stage name. If you look behind me, you'll see a studio. I'm a singer-songwriter, and I perform, and I stole Kerouac's name from my mother's side of the family. But anyway, so it's Steve Walk for all of those watching this later. And I'll leave this last kind of funny thing from Cohen. He said if Herr Schrödinger came to him and showed him, his wonderful equation, Cohen would say, "That's a fine heuristic you have there, Dr. Schrödinger." So I'll with that.